Hey, what's up guys? The Explanation Bro is here. Today, I'll explain the horror drama movie, Gaia. Spoilers incoming! The movie begins with a majestic top view of a foliage trees in a South African forest. We see the camera view from a remote-controlled drone, mostly because flying a helicopter with an ultra-high definition camera is too expensive. The drone flies towards two park rangers, Winston and Gabby. Winston paddles, Gabby controls the drone. A river stretching 100 kilometers long while Winston cruises with just a canoe and a paddle. Gabby continues to fly the drone, roaming around the picturesque landscape. Abundant greens and splendid vegetation as far as the eyes can see. The drone sees a moving human figure. Gabby realizes it. She moves the drone to follow it. The drone examines the stranger further and gets a spitting distance from the stranger. Smash! Two skinny white men living as a survivalist in the forest roam about taking the drone away. Their bodies are covered in mud with barely any kind of clothing. Gabby begs Winston to let go of the drone. She pleads to go no matter how much Winston opposes it, because he knows of the dangers that lie ahead. She eventually convinces Winston with the promise to come back right away. The survivalists set up a trap, one with a wooden stake designed to pierce anyone dumb enough to walk their way. The two survivalists cover their nose and mouth as they start gathering food, some form of nourishment they will need for dinner. The lankier man grabs some live chunky wood maggot still slithering inside the man's hand. He hands over a wooden tube to his companion as he picks a mushroom. Millions of minuscule mushroom spores flutter all over. Gabby wanders the forest in search of her drone. She radios Winston but there's no answer. Strange noises creep up to her. She checks her map. It's starting to get dark. The thought of being in the middle of the forest during the night scares her. Gabby strides quickly to find her way out. Gabby walks the same path where the trap is set. The trap is sprung. Gabby gets pierced through her left foot. She screams in tremendous pain. She radios for help. Winston finally hears her scream but manages to get the radio wet. They lose contact. Winston gets worried. Some fast-paced suspenseful background music gets Gabby stammering in pain. Gabby removes a spear-like stake impaling her left foot from the top down through the soles of her ranger boots. The night comes. Terror fills Winston as he walks the forest looking for Gabby. Armed with a single flashlight and a jungle knife, he carefully strolls the forest. Confusion and fear envelop Winston's face. With almost zero visibility, he couldn't see where he was walking. He falls on a shallow and muddy pond, luckily still standing on both his feet. Gabby grabs a stick to use as her crutch. She finds a huge dead tree. She stands before the tree in awe while blood-red, frightening. Rays of blinding light gleam behind the tree while spores surround her. She manages to find a small wooden shelter deep in the forest. She keeps herself safe as she lies on a makeshift bed. Meanwhile, Winston struggles to get out of the mud. He senses he is being hunted. He runs for his life. Screeching and squealing noises emanate from everywhere. He panics and runs. Gabby sleeps and dreams of vomiting a hairy slob of fungus. She springs awake from the nightmare. The two survivalists discovers her inside their shack, then sticks a knife on her neck. Winston surrenders to a slump. He takes his jungle knife, stabs it to the ground. In slow motion, he turns his head just to see a mutilated humanoid bent over backwards, creeping up to him on all fours. His eyes grow big upon the sight of this creature and runs for it. The two survivalists turn out to be nice people. Beren tends to her wounds as Stefan prepares a dish. They share a meal that Stefan prepared, made of exquisite porcini mushrooms, sumptuous rabbit innards, and luscious wood maggots crawling inside a wooden bowl. Back in the dark, Winston gets hunted by a creature that looks like a crossbreed between a human and a fungus, with gills stretching outwards where a face should be. He loses his flashlight from the struggle. As the night passes in the wooden shack, Gabby describes that she saw a creature in the forest and there was something wrong with his face. Winston finds a hiding spot where he can be safe. He sits on the base of a tree and falls as an unknowing victim to a silent creeping branch of fungi. The morning comes. Gabby lies asleep while the young Stefan is trusted by his father to bind Gabby's foot. Stefan is aroused by Gabby as he looks then finds nothing is covering the bottom half of her body. The next scene reveals several sprouts of fungal organisms have grown out of Gabby's arms. She takes them off in pain, knowing that each of the sprouts is heavily rooted beneath her skin. She wakes up and finds out it was all a dream. Gabby finds herself alone in the shack. She starts up a fire. While walking around, she finds a picture of a woman inside of a hollow spot on the wooden floor. Beren and Stefan hunt for food but rushes back to the house when they sense the smoke coming off their shack. Gabby wonders why both men are covered in mud. Eventually, another evening comes. Gabby tries her best to contact Winston, but to no avail. Beren narrates that he is a plant pathologist and the woman in the picture was her deceased wife, Lily, who was taken by bone cancer. The doctors gave up on her, so they decided to come back to this place where Stefan was conceived. This is where he met God. She looks at her foot, just to find a miraculously healed scar where the wound used to be. A close look on Winston's face shows a zombified cadaver where gills of mushrooms and translucent eyes covers and fungi slowly consume a paralyzed, half-dead body of Winston. As darkness falls, the house gets attacked by the same creature that killed Winston. The 3 remaining human beings succeed in striking the half-man, half-mushroom with their knives. Unfortunately, the creature's blood oozes on Gabby's face. As it scrambles in pain, Berend smacks it with a bat, throwing it outside the door, far enough so they could lock it. Berend is wounded in the arm and is infected by the pores of the creature. The night ensues as they clean up the naked body of Gabby. Berend gathers the blood from the recent encounter while he explains that the creature is a fungus that prefers to consume human beings. Berend continues to elaborate how this fungus resides beneath the earth, taking its time. Gabby scoffs in disbelief that Berend worships this organism as God. The morning when Gabby is supposed to leave, she shows her phone to Stefan while Berend is outside. Upon discovering this, Berend rampages in fury as he grabs a smartphone and throws it against the wall, effectively smashing it into pieces. Berend yells for Stefan to go outside. Berend takes him just outside the boundary of the dead tree that Gabby initially found the night before meeting them. Gabby tries to recover the pieces of her broken phone. In her search, she sees a manifesto underneath Berend's bed stating how much Berend absolutely hates what the world has become, ultimately revealing the reason Berend chooses to live deep inside the forest. Berend kneels before the tree as if to worship something. He offers a piece of meat, then bows in a prayer. He pours the blood he collected after the creature attacked, and within seconds, tiny toadstools sprouted from the inside. Berend picks 2, one for himself and one for Stefan. These toadstools are the only treatment after being infected by spores. Stefan hugs Gabby because he knows that Gabby is not going to survive out there with the fungi infecting her as the moments go by. Stefan is helpless. He slumps on the floor as Gabby leaves. Berend takes Gabby back to the forest and escorts her out of the woods. Gabby just couldn't stop because she found her boss's flashlight, then eventually ended up seeing him conscious but half-dead slumped at the base of a tree. Winston begs for her to kill him. She could only cry in disbelief as Berend hands over an arrow which Winston willfully swallows, effectively killing himself. One can imagine what kind of misery and pain Winston had to endure for 2 days to prefer death over what he had become. The creature discovers them, so they run back towards the house. Gabby is panting while Stefan is glad because she's back. Another night passes, Gabby discovers more sprouts of fungi growing out of her thighs. She begs Berend for a cure, but he instead leaves in the middle of the night to pray before the dead tree where the mother of all fungi resides. Gabby and Stefan spend the night talking to each other as Gabby teaches Stefan about the concept of love. Meanwhile, as Stefan offers another heap of flesh, it is apparent that he can communicate with his god. Berend disagrees in disbelief as if the mother of all fungi had just asked him to do something so impossible that he could only cry. Back in the shack, Gabby persuades Stefan about the whole world out there he can discover. He can become anything he wants and perhaps even a self-made man. Stefan replies that everything out there will soon die. That morning, Stefan makes a ruse to keep the toadstool in his mouth so he can get it to Gabby. Gabby says she wants to stay. She must be nuts, or she simply has the hots for her potential boy toy. They spend the day hanging out learning how to shoot arrows, playing with wooden toys and basically becoming closer to each other. One day, Gabby sees Berend writing. Berend explains that humanity is bound to destroy itself slowly but surely. And when it does, they will only experience suffering beyond salvation. Humanity will think they know pain. After Gaia comes, they will yearn for pain as something much sweeter than what Gaia has in store for them. Gabby doesn't understand most of it, so she requests to be enlightened. Berend gives her a hallucinogen, effectively explaining what is bound to happen. Berend sneaks out in the night. Gabby takes Stefan so they can leave and go to the outside world. Still, Berend convinces Stefan to stay. Gabby continues to leave. The big day comes. The one thing Gaia asks of Berend is to sacrifice Stefan. Stefan is tricked into a trap, tied down by the branches of the dead tree. As Berend tries to murder his own son, Gabby comes across them trying to escape the creature chasing her. Stefan frees himself from the trap. Chaos arises. Just as Berend is about to kill Gabby, his own son Stefan stabs Berend in the back. Death creeps very slowly as Berend begs Gaia for his life, but he fails miserably. Gabby and Stefan come back to the shack infected with spores. Days go by, they enjoy each other's company, but Gabby succumbs to the fungi. Gabby yearns for death, just like how Berend describes it. She begs Stefan to end her life. Stefan is, well, uninfected and healthy. He gestures his love over a decomposing corpse that was once Gabby, covered in all forms of fungi and vegetation. The movie ends with Stefan dressed like a normal guy going into the real world, discovering the city and eating in a fast food restaurant. He leaves behind his burger wrappers. A close look on Stefan's leftovers shows molds emerging rapidly. He is now Gaia's carrier, preparing to unleash death and decay into the world. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.